Alright, so for this brief demo video, I just want to show how we can go ahead and link our .NET application to a database. Alright, now in keeping it simple, I'm just going to link my .NET application, which in this case is a WinForms application. I'm going to link it to a service-based database in Visual Studio. Now, just to quickly give some additional context, Microsoft provides us, well, I should say .NET, which is still Microsoft, provides us with the necessary classes and components to link our .NET application to a variety of data sources. And one of those is an SQL database. Now, for this demo, I'll be using the datasets to link the database as well as pull data from the database. All right. Now, in a future demo, I will look at using the entity framework, which is the newer recommended way. But just because, right, just getting started, I'm just going to keep it simple. And then in a future video, I will do a demo using the entity framework. Now, to get started, I am in my project in Visual Studio. Now, if you look to the left, you should be seeing your, sorry, if you look to the right, you should be seeing your Solution Explorer and the name of your project. So just right click on the name of your project, go to add, then new item, and we want to add a service-based database, which is shown right here. Now I'm just going to call this sample DB, and we're just going to click on add, and that will add the database to our project for us, right? So under Solution Explorer, you should be seeing your sample DB file. Now to our left, you should be seeing a tab that says Server Explorer. If you are not seeing that tab, then you can go to View and look for Server Explorer, right? And once that opens up, you will also see your sample DB on the Server Explorer. Right now it is saying that it's not connected. I can click on refresh and it shows the connection. Now what we'll be doing is we'll be creating a table within this database, and to that table we will be adding a username attribute and a password attribute that will allow us to log in to our application. Alright, so once you click the drop down option next to the database file, you should be seeing tables, views, stored procedures, and so forth. What we are interested in now is actually creating a table within our database. Now, there are no tables currently within this database. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on my tables folder and I'm going to add a new table, right? Now I'm going to call this table users. I'm going to, as I said, add an attribute for the username and another attribute for the password. And also, apart from the username and password, I'm going to add an ID attribute that we'll be using as our primary key. All right, so let me just start by saying user ID. I'm going to leave the data type as an integer, and this being our primary key, it cannot be null. Therefore, the checkbox here that says allow nulls, that should be left unchecked. Now, once that is done, I'm going to enter another attribute, and this one is our username. So I'm just going to type uname, and the data type for this one, I'm going to set it to varchar, and 50 should be fine. We can uncheck allow null as well, because when, let's say, the user is registering for an account, you want them to put in their username. So you want a username to be there as well, so that cannot be null. And let's do the same thing for password. We can call it passcode, or let me just call it password. And I'm going to make it varchar as well. And I'm going to remove the allow nulls check also. Now I'm going to click back on my user ID column or attribute, and then I'm going to go over to my properties section, which you can find to the right of the screen. I'm going to scroll down, and where it says identity specification, I'm going to set this to true. Right now, the thing about the identity for us, it will allow the user ID field to be auto incremented. So that's how you auto increment your ID. Alright, so to do that, click the plus next to identity specification, and you should see is identity. That will return true or false. Let's say true. We want to set an identity on our user ID column, and it is asking what do we want to increment by. In this case, we're incrementing by a value of 1, and our seed value, which is the value from where we're starting, will also be 1. So the starting value is 1, it will increment by 1. So the first user in our user table will have an ID of 1, the second user will have an ID of 2, and so on and so forth. Right? Now that was set, so we are good to go in terms of the identity being set on our user ID column. And if you look at the actual SQL command, so if we go back a little bit to our left, and you see the SQL command, it actually sets the user ID as the primary key, and also it marked it with the identity. So we are good to go in that respect. Alright, so the next thing I'll do is I'm going to rename my table, and I'm going to do so from the SQL command down here. So where it says table in square bracket, I'm just going to refer to this as my user underscore table. And finally, all I need to do is to just click on update and update all the changes, including the creation of the columns and the renaming of the table. Now, once we click on update, a window will pop up just asking us to go ahead and finish the update. So we're going to click on update database. And if you look to the bottom of the screen, or close to the bottom of your screen, you should be seeing no issues found, which means that our update was performed successfully. But just to confirm, I'm going to go back to Server Explorer. I'm going to refresh, and now under my tables folder, I am seeing my user table, which was created for us, or for me. Right now, let me go ahead and just close out the design for the table. We no longer need that. Now, the next thing that we want to do is to write some code to allow the user to log in based on the username and password that is now being stored in the database, which means that I'll have to now go and enter some username and password and then write the code to allow the user to log in. Right, so in order to add a username, manually add the username and the password, because I don't have a registration form at the moment. So I'm going to manually add the username and the password. So I'm going to click the drop down beside the table folder. Then I'm going to right click on my user table, and I'm going to go to show table data, which brings up a new tab for us. Now currently there's no data being stored. So for the username, I'm going to type a username, and also I'm going to enter a password. So I'm going to say A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So at least we have one username and one password. So far, let's add another one. Let's just say admin, and let's just say password. Right, so that should be good enough for our demonstration. Right, so data has been saved. I am just going to refresh quickly. All right, and that is that part of it. Now the next step is to type the code, or write the code behind our login button that will allow us to pull the data, well, pull the username and the password from the database and allow us to log in successfully.